I'm here with Bob. He's the owner of this beautiful white Bronco named Oreo.
I've heard people having issues with the diff tube, especially when they went to larger size tires. And I eventually am going to larger size tires, so I'm just staging it to that point where I'm able to do it.
Today we are going to do the install of the upgraded Broncbuster differential tube, and we are here at 𝐬𝐃𝐄𝐄𝐿 4x4 in Canyon Lake, Texas. So we're going to start taking this apart. What we're going to do is remove the passenger side wheel. All right, so next thing we're going to do is go ahead and remove the tie rod. It's either going to be an 18 or a 21. No, 21. So remove that, and then we'll take the hammer and just hit it right here on the knuckle to remove that tie rod. Now we're going to go ahead and disconnect the sway bar. Oh, got the loose in it. Okay. All right, that's ready to come in. So go ahead and 35 millimeter removes the axle nut. Remove your wheel speed sensor and brake line from the knuckle, so it's not going to get hung up when you drop this. Now we'll remove the upper control arm. This has a different, because it's Fabtech. So normally it's going to be an 18 millimeter on the stock. Okay, now with the upper control arm released, this will swing down, and you can go ahead and, if that won't just tap out easily, just go ahead and put your nut back on. You don't have to give it a lot of ugga-duggas, but just give it a couple of little hits. Pull that nut back off. And we'll go ahead and pull the seat out, which we're going to just rotate this to the one side. You know what? We're going to have to release the sway bar. So this one has the automatic sway bar disconnect. So in a case like this, I'm going to need to go over, pull the other side, and then we'll have to get in the vehicle and raise the sway bar up so that it's not in the way of the CV. So I'll go ahead and do that real quick. All right, now with this removed from the knuckle, you'll want to pull the CV out. Now, you don't want to just start yanking on this or you'll pull everything apart. So you want to get something, get back behind here, a pry bar, or I like to use a large wrench, and we'll pry that open or apart. You're just going to get back behind here, and you kind of felt it pop. There's a circlip in there that released. So now that's released, so I can come back over, pull the CV axle. Okay. CV axle is now removed. So the circlip I'm talking about is that little clip right there, and that's an important part of it. We'll talk more in the video later when we go to reinstall to make sure that circlip is in place, or we'll talk about what happens if you don't. So 21 millimeter, and remove this bolt off of the front of the diff. So with the front bolt removed, we'll go ahead and 13 millimeter on the diff tube. We'll pull that down, and that'll give us room to start pulling those bolts off. Now we've got some room to kind of pivot this around, and a long extension on a 13 millimeter to take that 13 millimeter off right there. Yeah, we're gonna have to pry it out, but I'm gonna drain the oil first. So with the 4 bolts removed, we're gonna go ahead and keep those so I don't lose them. We're gonna drain the oil out of the differential using a 3/8 drive. While you're at it, I mean, if you're gonna go to this step, you might as well just do a change of oil on your diff. Sean brought this over, very handy, but he closed the handle, so we got a little bit of a diff mess to clean up, I guess you could say, right? So I was saying it's always nice when it's Sean's fault and it's not Tyler's fault.
Because usually when it's a mess, it is Tyler's fault.
Hey, 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 hey. Okay, that releases it. But we still have the shaft inserted into a circlip. You just have a large wrench or a pry bar. Okay, that's the stock one removed. Well, let's compare it to our new one.
Gotta get this on video.
Oh, we're gonna
cleaning up.
We're looking for cracks, right? Hey, now you be nice. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and save this seal, even though we provide you with a new seal. It doesn't hurt to just hang on to this in case you need it in the future. So we're gonna go ahead and pull, and there's a couple ways you can do it. I mean, you can put in with a couple screwdrivers and try that out. Ken provided me with this nifty little tool, so we're gonna try this out. I've never tried one of these. Let's go put it in the vise, yeah. So you'll notice that that needle bearing is flush with that surface. When we put it into the new part, it'll go into the same exact point. So in order to get that needle bearing out, we're gonna go ahead and turn this upside down on the press. And I'm gonna line it up to where we can then put pressure on that and push that needle bearing out. You can start to hear it coming. So I'm just gonna come underneath here. Eventually it'll fall out. So I'm gonna catch it. There we go. That's the shaft and the coupling. We're gonna talk about that on the reassembly. So we'll go get set up with the new part. We'll clean this up and get it ready to install on the new tube. So a couple of things when you go to reassemble this. Number one, you can over compress that coupling. I'm gonna just do it to show you. That coupling pressed all the way in, when you go to put your CV in there, you're not gonna get the circlip to line up. So you'll wanna make sure that it's sitting on the circlip where it needs to be, and you'll see a little bit of the spline showing. And what we learned happens if you don't have that circlip, your CV can actually pull out, and then you have only a little bit of spline engaged, and then it breaks your CV axle. So that's an important thing. We'll double check when we get it all installed by pulling the CV out. If that CV doesn't slide right out and it's held in there at that circlip, you know you've got it right. But we'll start with that to then start the reassembly. This is gonna drop down in the tube. It already has the needle bearing that's in the middle here for support pressed into it. So the only thing you're gonna do is reinsert that shaft, and then we're gonna take this needle bearing, and you'll see the side that has the writing and the numbers and stuff on it. That's gonna face out, and we're gonna go press it back in with the press. The easiest way to do that is this is a 29mm socket and the press, and it's just big enough that it'll cover, but it's small enough that it'll go in there. So this is what I'd recommend to press that in. We'll go press that right now. So you'll set that, get it square in place.
I find it obnoxious just to run out of space or this or that.
Release a little pressure. And we're just gonna get it lined up where I want it. Start applying a little pressure, double check that it's where you want it, and then continue to press down in. Go ahead and look from up on top, you'll see it pressing in. So you're gonna press it in until it's flush with the top surface, which there's a step down in there. Now, if you just keep pressing, you're gonna be able to press that, but you're also gonna compress that needle bearing. So I'm gonna go right to that point, release the pressure. And voila. Next step is we're gonna install the seal that we provided with your kit. Or if you wanna keep the new seal and put the old seal that you pulled out, it's up to you. We've installed the shaft, we've installed the needle bearing, again, flush with that surface. We've pressed out the bushing, we pushed it back in. The last thing before we reinstall the tube is to install this seal. So now I just got a big socket that'll fit over that. Now we're just gonna tap that in place. Surface is nice and tight. Everything looks good. So now we're going to clean up both surfaces, and I'm just getting rid of any oil and debris off the differential that we're going to attach to. Brake cleaner, carb cleaner, anything like that is not going to leave any oil residue. So you have a nice surface to bond to and create a good seal. So with that good and clean, I'm going to now clean this surface, get all my oily fingerprints off of it. With that, get some Permatex gasket maker. Now this is a machine surface to a machine surface, so it's going to be a pretty tight fit. You don't have to create this huge gasket in there. You're just putting a good solid film all over it. And then I'm going to just take my finger, just kind of work it around, cover every bit of the most of it. Okay, last thing I'm going to do before I insert the tube is I'm going to pull that shaft out, and I'm going to put some lube on the end of it. Now, it's just going to help things go back together a little easier. Plus, you can kind of center that ring. So it just takes a little of the, I guess, the circlip. So you're going to center that circlip in there, and the grease kind of helps hold it in place and gives a little bit of lubricant to go back together. So make sure it's clean. Got some grease on there. We've got our silicone on. I got my bolts behind me. I'll let Amy hold that while I get these bolts lined back up. We're going to go ahead and put this bolt back in on the differential. Again, we'll put some blue Loctite back on that. We're going to go ahead and install the differential bolt. Go ahead and put some blue Loctite on that as well. Now we're going to go ahead and refill the fluid on our differential, which is, again, 3/8 drive. We drained out the lower. We're going to open up, pull the plug out of the upper plug, and that's your fill level. So we'll pump oil. Go ahead and lift that up, Amy.
This?
No, the bottle. Never used this before, so. So the next step of what I'm doing is, of course, if you remember, we have the shaft with the coupling. I'm going to go on the inside of the coupling with a long extension, and all I'm doing is just tapping it to tap the shaft into the ring and pinion so that circlip sets. So put this up here. Okay. So next step, we're going to go ahead and reinstall the CV axle. In order to install the CV axle, I'm going to drop it down a little bit so it's at an easier height. I'm going to do the same thing I did on the shaft, and I'm going to apply a little bit of grease to the circlip on here. So bring it over here to the table. It was able to go in all the way unobstructed. I didn't have to hit on the end or tap on it, so that does make it for a little easier. What we're going to do now is I'm going to pull it back out, and it won't come back out. I'm not pulling on the CV, but I'm pulling on the cup, and it's not sliding back out, which means that circlip is set the way we wanted it. Everything's good to go, so now we are good to start the reassembly. So we're going to reassemble it the same way we took it apart. With that in place, we'll go ahead and reinstall our upper control arm to hold that in place. It's typically 18, but on this one it's a 22. Upper control arm is back in place. We're going to now install our cap, which this is only if you have an aftermarket one. Now we're going to go ahead and reinstall our CV axle nut. After CV axle, we'll reinstall our tie rod.
21.
Nope. The nut on first. Now we're going to reinstall our sway bar, which I didn't have to remove, so go ahead and reinstall our wheel speed sensor and brake line. At this point, reinstall your wheel and you're done. That's how you install the Broncbuster differential tube on the 6th Gen Bronco.
After seeing the install today, do you feel more confident in securing your Bronco?
Absolutely.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.